Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be talking about some Last Epoch. I know, I know, everyone's playing Pee-wee right now, and guess what? I don't care. We're going to be talking about some Last Epoch. I do play Pee-wee, by the way. I just want to let you know. It's just Last Epoch is my job, so we're going to be talking about Last Epoch. And recently, I found a minion build in Last Epoch that I don't absolutely hate. And that is amazing considering my negative opinion towards minions currently. If you don't know, minions in Last Epoch are kind of mediocre for the most part. There are certain minions that do really well, especially if you take snapshotting into account, like crows or A-bomb. But I don't live in Fantasyland, and I don't pretend that I have two sets of gear. So yeah, I usually stay away from snapshotting. So what does that mean? Well, it means most minion builds suck for me. So yeah, they suck. They suck for a few different reasons. The first reason being HP has inflated significantly. Enemy HP has inflated while damage has not gone up much for minions. That is because over the last year, they reworked Corruption, which inflated boss HP, and then they reworked, they added bosses like Harbingers, which have way more base HP than the normal Monolith bosses. Then they added Aberoth, which has more HP than the Harbingers. And then, if you really care, like they added Uber Aberoth, which has way more HP. There's been so much inflation in terms of the amount of HP that enemies have that it would make a Sonic fan artist happy because there's just so much inflation going around. It's crazy. And then on top of this, there's also the problem where there was a bunch of item creep as well that's supposed to keep builds up with that. Like certain items, are easier to get. You have the 1 LP guaranteed slam. You have all these character power buffs, but minion builds don't get affected as much. Now, I'm not saying that they don't get affected at all. I'm saying that you can only stack so much percent minion damage to make your skeletons actually function, right? There's only so much percent minion damage in the game where you can actually stack to make minions actually do something. And because of this limited scaling that they have access to for the most part, this causes them to kind of fall behind the herd a little bit, right? Cool. Also, as well, their clear speed isn't as good as other builds in theory, right? In theory, minion builds, at least for the history of Last Epoch before 1.0, they did not have that good of clear speed, but they were really good at killing bosses very safely and had very high amounts of boss damage. A good example is Summon Raptor back in the day would have a lot of damage and kill bosses very fast. Not that fast anymore, by the way. It would kill bosses very fast, but its clear would be bad. So it kind of was a trade-off. But now, because the game is so focused on, favor, whether you're playing Merchant's Guild and you need favor to sell items, or you need to play COF where you need favor to do prophecies, this causes you to have problems where you can't clear fast enough to keep up with other builds. And another good example for this is the imprint system. With the imprint system, one of the strongest imprints is just killing enemies. And since you don't kill enemies as fast, you don't get as many imprints. Now, you do have the chest, though. That is 1 point in the minion's point of favor, where you can spam chest monos and stuff like that. So that is something that you can do. But we're going to assume that the loss would folly infinite stuff is probably going to get nerfed next patch. So I'm going to keep that out of the discussion for now. But yeah, I don't like minions, and I can prove it by saying that I've played a lot of minion builds over the past year, but I've only made a video on 2 of them. And that is going to be this one, and it's going to be the Summon Stormcrow build. And that build was awful, by the way. You should play the other one, the crit one. That one's way better, so much better. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about this build. It's gonna be Bleed Sabertooth Beastmaster. Now, Sabertooth got buffed. Imagine that. The archetype that didn't get any changes over the past maybe 2 years, and you buff it a little bit, and all of a sudden it's viable, or viable with the loosest amount of words. I started a Zero to Hero run. These will be returning, by the way, eventually. I've been on vacation. Thank you very much for the past 2 weeks. But the Zero to Hero stuff will return momentarily. But yeah, I did a Zero to Hero run with, Summon Sabertooth. So I started fresh with no gear whatsoever, no access to anything. And it did pretty well. The moment I got Summon Sabertooth, it did a lot of damage. And the moment I got any bleed on my gear, It did a lot of damage there, and I'm sure crit Sabretooth could be good, and that's all because of one node. And that's the node that makes it so that your Summon Sabretooth has a chance to apply Ancestral Sabretooth on melee hit. So essentially, we attack a bunch of times with Sabretooth by spamming its companion ability, and it hits a bunch of times, which summons a bunch of kitties. And these kitties do comparable damage to the main Sabretooth. Right now, they're about doubling my DPS, and that's mainly because I'm running generic bleed chance. Sure, one Sabretooth, right, is very effective because you have the more damage from companions, you have the more health from companions, right? But then the Sabretooth summons like 10 to 20 Ancestral Sabretooths, which ends up being about as much as one normal companion Sabretooth. So that is effectively doubling our damage. So we have effectively, quote unquote, doubled Sabretooth's damage since last patch. And turns out doubling your damage on something that's mediocre makes it go from mediocre to playable. And when it's playable, it's fun. And the main reason why I would say that it is the most fun minion build I've played over the last year, other than ones I didn't talk about, right? This one specifically is because it's clear doesn't make me want to go commit things to myself. That's because of the Ancestral Sabretooths, because if you pay attention to how it's worded, it means on hit. So if you had 10 enemies, you have a chance to create a Sabretooth for each of those in the last 4 seconds. So you have a 22% chance. So if you hit 10 enemies and you have a 22% chance, we'll make 2 Sabretooths. But then, as you can see, Mr. Summon Sabretooth over here hits a lot because of his, the companion ability. Because each time I proc the companion ability, as long as Frenzy Totem's out, it hits 6 times in an area. So it hits in an area multiple times, which means that you create a very large amount of Summon Sabretooths. And this leads to a lot of fun, mainly because, your clear speed exponentially gets better as there's more enemies. Now, it's not the fastest thing ever. I'm not saying that this build is good at all. It's like fine. But the fact that it's functional is a step in the right direction, because I'm just used to skeletons sucking. I'm used to squirrels sucking. I'm used to avalanche golems sucking. I'm just used to all these things being so ungodly, unfortunately bad, that when something goes over mediocrity, I'm happy. And I don't know how to feel about that, because, that's not how it should be, that's not how I should be happy. Like, I should be happy about it, right? Like, that's not how I should be going about feeling about this. But at the same time, I'm just relieved that I'm playing a minion build and I don't want to throw my computer out the window. I guess it's a step in the right direction, but I really do hope that with the Necromancer changes coming next patch, hopefully that's been confirmed for 1.3, we get some actual changes instead of some half-assed fake changes, because it'd be nice to play minions. Turns out Dread actually doesn't mind playing minions as long as they make sense in this day and age. When you have enemies like the Harbingers doing massive AoE damage, and you have enemies in the tombs, you have the possessions, you have all these things, we need weapons to deal with this kind of shit, dude. If you're gonna give Uber Aberoth so much HP, is it really that big of a deal that my Raptor does damage? Really? We're just entering a phase in Last Epoch where I don't even know if it's even that overpowered if a build does more than 10 million DPS. That's bare minimum at this point for Uber Aberoth, right? So it's why are we nerfing these things? Why are we changing these things? Why aren't we changing these things? It's don't get me wrong, because of the glacial pace of the updates over the past year and 2, by the way, or 3 if you want to be nitpicky, right? In theory, in the last 3 years, we've had 3 delays, right? Because of this, it hasn't given them much time to actually sit down and balance numbers and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping now that we're actually getting updates every 3 to 4 months, hopefully, don't make me wrong, EHG, we'll actually see some changes for minions that don't absolutely suck. Hopefully. I'm hoping and praying. Yeah. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know, hey, look, I played a Minion build and it didn't suck. There will be a video on it eventually. Don't worry. With all that being said, this has been Dread. I'll have to go do something else, I guess. Bye.